Hello. For quite some time now, I have seen young people who are interested in software development come to me and ask what language, what development language, which software language, which programming language should I learn to have a successful career in software development. And most of the time I've been taken aback by that question because that is a question which doesn't have a definite answer. So I am going to try to explain which language you should learn, which language you should not learn, or whether you need to actually worry about the language or the skills that you have. Now, to begin with, let's see how far software development has come. A few years ago, there was a lot of developers who were developing desktop applications. And when I say desktop application, these are applications which runs locally on a computer. And with time, desktop applications have slowly been getting outdated because of the need to have access of these systems over the network. So the first thing I say to people who are asking me, where do I start? And the first thing I say is focus on web development. If you are to develop a software for a start, it is not advisable at this time and age to start developing desktop application, because you'll find out that most clients are actually not interested in desktop application because they are difficult to install, they are difficult to maintain, and most clients want to access their systems over the internet. So the first thing I say to people is don't start with desktop application. Immediately jump to web development. There is a lot that you can learn from developing applications which are accessible through the internet. Now, the next question that comes is the confusion between a website and a web application. A website and a web application are not the same thing. A website is static, but a web application is dynamic and runs on a database and has a server side and a client side. Now, with that in mind, we are going to start by checking out what language should you learn if you are to develop on the client side. Now, what I mean now is you need to learn languages which will help you develop on client side, and you also need to learn languages which will help you develop on the server side. So to burst your bubble, you cannot learn one language and expect to develop a system end-to-end. You need to have a server-side language and several client-side languages. And a website is actually a very nice place to start if you're learning client-side languages. These is languages like HTML, JavaScript, CSS. These are some of the languages which these are some of the skills which you should you should learn. And I have seen all these jokes on the internet about HTML not being a programming language. I have seen all these jokes. Try to build a web application without knowing how to write HTML and see how it goes. And you will need HTML skills, you will need JavaScript skills, and you will need CSS skills if you are to develop from the client side. Now, this is just for the website. Now, if you are developing a web application, you will need an extra server-side language to learn, so that now your application can run securely, one part on the client side and the logic side on the server side. And now this is where you have to learn languages like Java, you have to learn languages like PHP, you have to learn languages like Python, you have to learn languages like C, C#, C++, and all these server-side languages. Now, the question of which language should I learn? Now, this is where it comes. The debate about which language is better than the other will never end. And it's not going to end tomorrow. It didn't start yesterday. It started a long time ago. And it's going to continue for quite some time. But I have had 10 years experience now in software development markets. And I'll tell you this with 100% assurance. If you are starting, please note, this is for people who have not started learning a language and they actually intend to start. A server-side language, I advise people to start with either one of these two languages. You either start with Java or Python. That is it. Now, question is why? Now, there's a lot of advantages of learning these languages, and part of it is the number of libraries these languages have accumulated over time. And with time, you will realize that you don't actually need to write a lot of code. You just need to rely on libraries to actually do your development. We also have a lot of frameworks in these two languages that you can actually rely on to build applications which are fast, secure, and reliable. These are for the people who are starting. Now, if you have already started and you've already learned a server-side language which is not Java and which is not Python, I will tell you this: don't try to learn a new language. Stick to where you are. The language that you have learned will serve you as well as any other language. You don't need to change. Your skills in this case is what matters, and it's not the language you're using. Now, in case of portability, well, Java and Python still goes very well with portability. You realize that if you build a C application or C# application, you probably be limited into the operating systems you can deploy your systems in. But if you develop in Java and Python, you don't have that problem. Still, I say, if you have already learned a server-side language, there are a lot of ways to maneuver that problem. So stick to where you are. Don't try to learn a new language. If you have the time, by all means, learn a new language. But I can promise you, it will not give you anything different than what you already have. The best thing to do is build the skills with the language that you have already learned, and don't try to jump from one language to the next. I hope I have answered your question. Thank you very much.